Hey, welcome to the Cheap Chills show on art and monsters. One thing I'm just glad that there's no more construction going on in the neighborhood. Nobody's cutting down any trees. All that stuff is gone. So this should be a good recording and I'm excited. And I'm not going to do much of a preamble because I'm super excited about the guest that we have for today. My guest today is the director of the 2016 film Phantasm Ravager. Ravager? Oh, I messed that up. The 2016 film Phantasm Ravager. No N. Plus, he's done like 25 years worth of other film and television work, like directing Godzilla the series, Astroboy, Jackie Chan Adventures, Laser Fart, and the animated video for Rob Zombie's American Witch. Then that's just not even cracking the surface. Above all, though, question mark. This guy is a phenomenal artist who loves to draw monsters. It's David Hartman. Hey, David, what's going on?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. How are you doing so far today?
Not too bad. I just finished up a job yesterday, so I'm feeling good and pumped up today, ready to go.
Doesn't that feel great?
It
Like for a
does. It
moment, you
does.
can feel like you got no obligations.
For a moment, I'm already drawing monsters again as
Yeah.
we speak. Um, as I
Yeah.
got drawn.
That's what I was wondering about, like how you have time. And now I'm starting to get it. You just kind of sneak in the monsters whenever you can.
Absolutely, it's nonstop. Really, it's my favorite thing to do. So it's like nowadays, I used to be a night owl, like stay up till all ends of the night drawing. But as I've gotten older, I've realized I'm actually more productive first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually get up around 6 or 7 now and draw in bed. I got
Wow.
an iPad right next to the bed, and I'll draw for like 3 hours and then get up and get ready for the day. But at least then I feel like I've already accomplished a lot, so I don't feel
Mm-hmm.
like I have to like pull an all nighter or anything to hit deadlines or whatever. So that's kind of different. I didn't realize, I had more creativity first thing in the morning than I actually do at 3 in the morning when I'm dead tired and burned out.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I've found the same thing totally, and I can't stay up past 9:30 anymore. Um, I used to last year. I was going to these goth clubs and drawing people like live as
Cool.
caricatures, but like I just couldn't handle. It would mess up my whole week,
Yeah.
staying up that late. But yeah, I do the same thing, except that this weekend the dog ate my second Apple Pencil.
What?
Um,
How
yeah.
big's your dog?
What's that?
How big's your dog?
Big enough. Big enough. They're mediums, both of them, and it's like they got
Wow.
plausible deniability because there's two of them. But I have a feeling I know the suspect who did it. He eats cardboard. He all of our towels. I was saying it.
Oh my
It looks like
god.
Gilligan's Island here because all the towels are just like. But
Got
yeah, now
holes
I
and
got to buy a
tears.
third Apple Pencil. Thank
Oh
you.
my god.
But that's cool because you know what? I think your brain is fresher in the morning, right? Like you've
Yeah,
had your rest.
it is, and it's you're coming out of, a creative state, having dreams and stuff like that. So I just feel I'm just getting more done, but it is kind of like a life change when you
Hmm.
commit to that, because you are going to bed earlier. Um, but again, I just found myself being a little bit happier in the day, knowing I don't have a daunting task ahead of me at the end of the night, or like through college, it's like constantly staying
Hmm.
up all night and feeling like, oh my God, I still have like 3 hours worth of work left and it's already two, you know?
Right.
Yeah, now that
Well,
I'm older, I can't handle that as much.
are the daunting tasks your gigs, or are they like things that are haunting your brain that you just need to get out,
Both.
your own stuff?
Both. It's usually I'm doing gigs and then a gig I might push off to do my own stuff. So now I got to catch up on the
Hmm.
gig, you
Oh
know?
yeah, I've
So
been there, man.
yeah, so it's a little back and forth depending on what it is, but that's kind of the nature of the job. But again, I just feel like if I feel good, by the morning because I'm like, wow, I got a bunch done. I'm happy with the drawing. If I screwed up and like I had a bad drawing day or something
Hmm.
and it just looks like crap in the morning, um, at least then I know I got the whole rest of the day to make up for it if I need to.
Right.
So, um, and yeah, that's kind of my crazy logic these days. Um, I
Do you
say
ever
that,
have
but then I always catch myself late at night and still having to do something.
Now, do you ever have off days where you just feel like whoever said that I could draw was a liar? Like I just can't do it
Oh,
today.
absolutely, absolutely. But I've been a director and mainly a storyboard artist. Even as directing, I'm storyboarding, and um, you tend to find this happy place, which is you draw everything, right? And you draw so many poses that you're uncomfortable with. And after you've done
Hmm.
that 1,000 times, you just kind of get your shorthand to the point where even a bad drawing day, I can pull off the work that I need to get done in a storyboard. I might not go and try and do a beautiful rendering at that time, but I'm still confident that I can get the job done for storyboarding. But that just comes with time and practice and muscle memory.
Yeah.
But I do have off days, where I'm drawing my monsters and it's just not clicking. But I just don't force it. I'm like, okay, I'll just take a day to rest and watch movies, get rejuvenated. But I don't know. I kind of draw every day. I'm just nonstop doodling because my brain is scattered, and to stay focused, I'm always drawing. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't know. I
That's
just love it. I just love monsters. So I just can't stop drawing
yeah.
monsters.
Right. And that's what I was kind of curious about. And you're making it pretty clear, but I was just wondering, like, is your first love drawing? And clearly that sounds like it is. And
Yeah, yeah.
it seems like getting into like directing and doing stuff in Hollywood and kind of stuff where you're not necessarily drawing as all of your job, is it?
Yeah,
Do
it's
you
a
feel
little bit of both. Or I've worked with artists. I mean, my my love has always been drawing, but to be honest, like even further than that, I just like to tell stories and I like to make things. And drawing has always been a means to do that. But I've been fortunate enough, whatever blessings it was, is like I could draw since I was really little. Since I could hold a pencil, I was drawing stuff, and I even have comics around here I made like when I was in elementary school, and I think one of my first ones was like Exorcist 306, and I was drawing a monster vomiting all over the place and drew it in red and blue crayons so you could wear 3D glasses and the puke's coming at you and stuff.
whoa.
But
How old were you?
that was definitely elementary school, so I don't know, that might have been fifth grade or something like that.
Okay.
But still, it's
the,
like,
the worst I got at that age was I was interested in like all the choose your own adventure books,
yeah.
and anything where like wizards and elves and powers and stuff, that whole genre. And once I drew this picture, like on binder paper, probably, and it was like a close up. I was trying to do like a close up of like a dramatic hand with like power coming out of it, like just a close up of that.
Foreshortening.
Yeah.
That's tough.
And the teacher put it up on the wall. Like she'd put up the drawings that the students were proud of. And one of my friends pointed out that it just looked like a man's hand grabbing a big lady's bush. Like it was like this triangle shape. I was like, oh, oops.
Yeah, I think I got into like horror and stuff because my mom, we went to a bookstore when I was 7 years old, and I still remember it so well because it was like Fangoria issue number 2, which
Hmm.
had John Frankenheimer's Prophecy Bear. And I've told the story 100 times, but it's like it truly is what made me kind of love horror. It's like I got that magazine, and I thank my mom for getting it for a 7-year old without probably flipping through it first and just
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, this is a
Yeah.
movie, it's for kids. um Anyhow, she got me that, and it had Phantasm in it, which blew my mind. It had Prophecy and uh I don't know, that just really made me love monsters, but also like movie and movie makeup. And I don't know. I just, and ever since then, I'm much older now, and I still tried to hold on to that same feeling I had when I was 7 years old, with
Hmm.
monsters, and try not to get jaded by the business and all the
Yeah.
politics that always happens and stuff. And just remember the whole reason I even wanted to get into this was those freaking monsters,
Yeah.
and, uh, that's
What
what
gets
got me
you?
into horror,
What
really.
can you kind of reset by looking at anything, movies, or getting those old magazines
Yeah,
out?
no, I honestly, okay, I love horror, and I even like watching modern stuff, but I'm still kind of a child of the 80s, and I still go back to watching all those 80s movies, or actually the 70s movies that we watched in the 80s,
Yeah.
and I still go to all those. And for me, it's like why I love those movies, because you see the passion that's in there to create it. It's like some movies today, this is just my personal opinion, but they're overproduced to the point where I kind of don't see the creativity in it. It's like even watching, a fantastic John Carpenter film, you see little mistakes, not really mistakes, but just, human touches
Yeah.
to it. And that's why I love the 80s, because it's like, I'd watch these movies, and, a lot of us call them schlock or bad movies, but there was freaking passion behind that, man.
Yeah.
And they were doing their best to make the next freaking Jaws or something, but
Yeah.
it ended up not being so. But I just love that, and I watch those movies because I feel those people's passion when I'm trying to make my own kind of schlocky stuff, and
There's something scary about seeing something that is underproduced or amateurish, because it feels like you're witnessing something horrible that happened that maybe somebody who could barely make a
yeah,
film
yeah.
captured, you
Yeah,
know?
you're not enthralled by how good the lighting was, and that they had a great rim light there, and oh, they used a vintage lens here. That looks really pretty with the
Hmm.
boat. It's like, I don't care about that. I just want to see the monster eat the person. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm with you on that, and just some of the grit and grain and stuff. I think a lot of that is obviously coming back, and things like Terrifier and stuff like that is obviously influenced by a lot of the same stuff. So it's nice to see that there's still a love, and there's still like a huge audience for that kind of work. So, but really, that's like kind of my big influence on my work these days. I'm constantly just popping on old movies,
Right.
um, where I know them by heart, to where I don't have to keep looking up. It's just the noise in the background, and remembering the scenes in my head as I'm drawing. That's just inspiring, I find.
Like what?
Oh, I'm constantly watching. I mean, a lot of the classic 80s, like Return of the Living Dead, Evil Dead, all those. But, I have my home server, and I got about 2,000 movies on it.
Oh, nice.
But most of them are not the A grade movies. Just everything from 80s Bollywood horror to, stop motion, or just really obscure kind of stuff. But it's like 80s, even 80s kung fu movies, and I
Yeah.
don't know. I just love that world. Kind of grindhouse, right? So
Hmm.
um, it's just always changing. But I love all the Hammer films, and
Yeah.
those are always a go-to for me. But
That's my favorite.
yeah,
And I don't know how it all fits in, but I love that with Hammer, there's just so much that's like almost like watching a play where it's very set driven.
yeah,
There's going to be people
absolutely.
going racing on, horse and buggies and whatever to beat the sunset or whatever they out in the roads in the forest. But there's also like a lot of everything outdoors is like a set a lot of times. And it's
Oh,
very like boiled
absolutely.
down like a comic book or a play or something. I
Yeah,
like that.
I love that look. Plus, you had that kind of Technicolor look, and then you had directors like Terrence Fisher, and even like Mario Bava is a huge influence for me,
Yeah.
because his use of color and stuff was fantastic. And
Oh yeah.
I don't know, just all that stuff again is very inspiring. And I kind of started, doing my horror illustration and getting more known for it from just doing fan art for these films. And and stuff. And I think that's what got me my stuff seen by like Rob Zombie, Don
Oh yeah.
Coscarelli, and stuff like
Yeah, he
that.
followed me for a minute. That was cool.
Awesome. Yeah, no, Rob is fantastic. I love
Yeah.
working with him. Yeah, he's one of my favorite people.
That's cool. Uh, Mario Bava is a pretty recent discovery for me. I think
Okay. Yeah.
the vampires, was it space vampires? That doesn't sound right.
Yeah. Planet of the Vampires, and
Planet of
then
the Vampires. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. If,
I
if you
just
watch
saw
one
that
of his,
like
like
maybe
Black
was that?
Sabbath, you got to see Black
Oh, I
Sabbath.
saw that. So
Okay, that's
good,
one of my
just
favorites of his.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the Discovery film was Planet of the Vampires, and like you said, there's the colors and the fog
Yeah.
machines and the sets and everything. I love that kind of look. So I did a little animation talking about that
Oh,
movie,
awesome.
and and then I've watched Danger Diabolique like
Oh,
last year.
yes. Yes.
So good. I think it might be my new favorite movie.
Awesome.
And like I
Yeah.
don't buy a lot of movies, but I'm like I got to get this on Blu-ray.
Oh,
I
and
got
it
to
looks fantastic.
watch
The
it with my
colors.
lady. I bought it like 4 months ago, and we have a kid, so we just have never have time to like sit down and watch a movie together at night. But we'll get it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a really good one. But I mean, he's just a great director, but he definitely has a style that's all his own. And I don't know, it's
Mm.
very inspiring. Just to throw anything, of his, but also just any of his, just that era, again, I'd say 70s and 80s, but I always go back to the 60s and Argo Man and all these kind of weird
Oh yeah,
Italian spy
so good.
superhero flicks that are kind of like
Hmm.
that. So, yeah.
That's cool. Um, yeah, and I've been more influenced by like these kind of alternative superhero stories lately too, like the Italian superhero stuff, and
Hmm.
then the Japanese tokusatsu. I've been watching a
Oh,
lot of that. It's just perfect escapism, from all your
oh,
anxieties.
wow. And that's another, like, again, the older movies like Message from Space or
Yeah.
Super Inframan or
Hmm.
Kamen Rider. I just love, all that stuff as well. But, I don't know. I always go back to those movies. Well, Inframan's probably one of my favorite of those.
Oh, that's
Uh,
cool. I did an animation about that one too. I don't know if you caught that one.
we like all the same stuff. Thunderball
Yeah.
fist. I can have such a thing.
I like those. There's guys on like YouTube that'll put on genre movies and B movies and kind of like a short MST3K kind of thing where they'll
Right, right.
review it but zing it at the same time. And I just loved that movie so much. I was like, I gotta tell people about this. So I just kind of did
Yeah.
one of those, but animated.
Yes. I have like somewhere I have a one sheet poster for that movie. The other one I'm proud of is Your Hunter from the
Oh yeah,
Future with Brett Brown. I
yeah.
have a giant Italian, like 6 foot tall poster, and I used to
Damn talking box.
look. And dude, I remember even like 10 years ago, I had to hunt down the soundtrack. I wanted that
Mm.
soundtrack, and found like online someplace in Italy that actually had it on
Oh,
CD.
nice. Now, me and my brother had a little theory when we found it in the 80s. I wonder what you think. I don't know if anybody would ever make a movie like this, but it felt like they set out to make a Conan ripoff. And then, like halfway through making it, they're like, "What if it was a Star Wars ripoff? And let's change it."
Well, surprisingly, it's actually based off of a book, and there's actually
Mm.
comics of it. Um, and it always had this kind of sci-fi vibe to it. But when you watch the movie, it's kind of thrown at you. But man, my favorite scene is when he goes hang gliding on that
Yeah,
pterodactyl.
me too. Oh my god! And the rock
The
music, like
theme song
Queen,
comes
basically
on.
starts
Like,
playing.
"Oh."
That's the best.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, I think what we're both talking about is like just unabashed fun and remembering that like this stuff should be fun and making it
Yeah,
should
I,
be
I
as
think that,
fun as watching it.
and I think that's what I say when overproduced in a way where sometimes it's I mean, you got to take it seriously. You're doing a job and you want to make it your best work. It's just like your art or anything else. But just like art, there's also going to be a time when, you got to know like, hey, that line is perfect. I don't need to keep re-inking over and over, and then you lose the spontaneity in your art,
Hmm.
and then it feels mechanical or forced or even AI these days, you know.
Right.
And so I like scratchiness. I like the dirtiness in art, and the
Same.
looseness, and you know, I try to apply that. I'm sure this is not visible, but you know, in all the animation I've storyboarded or directed, I still try to keep that mindset when doing it. And like, what do I want
Well,
to see that makes it fun? You know?
I noticed that I was just watching the video, the Rob Zombie video, to get back to him, the American Witch, and I was wondering, like, was that you? How it must have been a pretty small team making that.
Uh, it was pretty much me.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was just talking to Rob, and you know, he had some ideas like, hey, do this, do which, what would you do basically? And then I kind of pitched him some sketches, you know, and kind of went with this, you know, classic witch wearing just stockings and a hat, you know,
Mhm.
kind of hit his vibe, but then just completely fill it with monsters
Yeah.
and my artwork through it. But you know, I'm a storyboard artist. I'm not necessarily the frame by frame animator, right?
Right.
And so there's a lot of After Effects in that kind of gives it that flash look. But I don't like flash at the time, so I wanted to still have the roughness of the drawing. So I literally just
Yeah.
drew everything in pencil, scanned it in, colored it, and then I basically animated that whole thing.
Yeah.
I ended up doing another one for him, the Lords of Salem, um, where I actually brought in a few people because it was kind of a daunting task the first time. Um,
Yeah.
to do that. You know, you think it's like, oh, that's only like 3 minutes. I can handle
Hmm.
that. And then you're like, well, but the way it's got to cut, it's got to keep moving. And the next thing you know, you're like on 700 shots. And, you know, it's
Yeah.
like,
That's hard. But no, I wrote down it gives me hope because, like, I'm the same way. I can't do frame by frame animation. So, I was like, I just wrote down, like, this is cool drawings and After Effects, but that
yeah,
gives me hope because that's what I'm capable of too.
yeah. Well, and that's kind of really comes down to is what are you capable of at the time? And for me, I just want to tell stories. So I would do it however I had access to. I mean, even that one, it's so old now. Even a lot of it was animated in Final Cut 7, you know,
Mm,
because that's the software I knew at the time. But it's like, yeah, you can kind of do this and you can kind of do that. And you kind of cater your product to what you know you can do a little bit instead of
right.
using lesser tools trying to make it look like something that it can never be. It's like let it be what it needs to be, and tell the story the best way you can with the tools you got.
Yeah. And I think it's also kind of wrapped up in, like, your own self-esteem and,
Yeah.
self-confidence. And, I can get caught up in being like, I want this to look this certain way, which is not how I make art at all,
Oh, I,
but, like,
I,
then it would
I'm
be
constantly,
worthwhile while my art sucks. So I got to
yeah,
make it look like somebody else drew it.
yeah. I'm always like, I got two personalities. There's the one that's just constantly beating myself up, right? And I just hate absolutely everything I do. But then there's this other part of me that's also like, I can't miss an opportunity when there is one, you know? And it's
Right.
like Bubba Ho-Tep, for example. That's how I got that gig. I had met, I was working at Sony, directing this thing called Lenore, based off this comic book by Roman Dirge. And we were, Roman and I were animating these little shorts based off his comic. And then I remember Don Coscarelli came by because he was meeting one of my editors because this editor was working on a movie of his, which was Bubba Ho-Tep. Anyhow, Don saw some of my artwork. I took it as an opportunity to show him some of my short films. It's like, hey, you like that? You should see these. And I've been inspired by your work. And Don's like, oh, those are great. And then he just asked me, he's like, hey, do you know how to do wire removal? And I'm like, huh, yeah, I can do wire removal. I've done that before. Sure. And he's like, okay, cool. I got this little movie called Bubba Ho-Tep with Bruce Campbell. And I'm just like, yes, Bruce Campbell. And, you know, why don't you do some wire removal? You gave me some shots. I had no freaking clue, man, how to do wire
Yeah.
removal, but
Yeah.
I know I could
You
do
could
it.
figure it out.
Yeah. And, you know, with a little bit of research, you know, even back then, the internet wasn't, or YouTube wasn't full of tutorials at that time. It was like, you had to do some little groundwork and try some different programs that I had friends that I knew they had these programs, and I would just borrow their computers or do it on my own and just do these shots. And then Don was like, I like this, and give me another one. And then, just keeps on, you do the best work you can, and it just keeps on leading to networking to. Opportunities.
And is that the connection to the Phantasm movie?
Sort of like, yeah, I mean, that's how I really met Don. And then he did this like incident on and off a mountain road for Showtime's Masters of Horror, and he invited me up there. I went up there and storyboarded some scenes for him. But while all that was happening, I'm just constantly trying to make stuff. I was filming short films all the time. I was doing part of this group, Channel 101, which you mentioned, like Laser Fart and stuff like that, with Dan Harmon and Rob Schrab. And we were doing a lot of short films together. And then, I kept sending these to Don to get his, thoughts on it. And, I was talking to Don one time, and I was just like, hey, I'd love to get my reel. Like, I got a lot of comedy. And I was at that point with Channel 101, I was fortunate enough that these guys, I had a stuff with Jack Black, an episode with Sarah Silverman. So I was like, there's some face value on some of my goofy short films I'm just shooting in the backyard,
Yeah.
And it was like showing it to him. He was like, I was like, is there a way we could do like a Phantasm thing that I could just show like a 2-minute thing I could have on my reel, but at the same time, Don can have it and put it as an Easter egg on a DVD release or something. I was like, there's some new footage. So Don's like, hey, that's kind of a fun idea. Let's try it. So I wrote a scene. Don liked it. He called up Reggie Bannister, and we were like, let's just go out and film it. So we went out a weekend, small crew. It was me, Don, Reggie, and we had a few other friends that were helping with lighting and cameras. It was the beginning, kind of really, when we started that. That was the beginning of the digital camera age. So at that time, getting a 1080p camera was a big freaking deal.
Yeah.
I had a 720p, and we were going to film on that. It's like, no, let's borrow a 1080p from a friend.
Yeah.
And we go out and we shot it, and Don was really happy with it. It's like, you know what? Let's do another. So we go out. I write another scene. And that time I'm like, let's do a car chase. I never got to do a car chase. I love that, Barracuda that you have.
Bullet.
Let's do that. Yeah. So I wrote a little scene that takes place in the desert where the car's being chased by a sphere. And so we went out and filmed that out in the desert, just like me, Don, Reggie's wife, Gigi, and maybe one or two guys to help look for, cars, make sure we don't cause any problems. But then, so it was very guerrilla style, and Don was having a lot of fun because that takes him back to his, glory days, the youth, or whatever you want to call it, the beginning of Phantasm. And we just kept on doing that. But then Don went to go work on John Dies at the end. I went to go start up this show, Transformers Prime, where I was like the art director and lead director on it. And so we both kind of put Phantasm on the side because really that was just for fun. We had no idea what we were going to do with it. Maybe do a web series, throw it on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
So actually a couple years went by and that footage just sat there. And then it wasn't until Don and I got together for lunch. It's like, what are we going to do with all this footage? Are we going to put it on YouTube? What are we going to do? And Don's just like, I thought about it. I'm going to make part 5. That was so much fun. Let's make part 5. I was like, wow. Like, I had been wanting a part 5 because I'm a huge fan of the series. I grew up with it. Like I said, Fangoria issue number 2 had Phantasm in it. So for me, this is like a full circle moment. Yeah. I even wrote fan mail to Reggie Bannister when I was a teenager. So this was like a full circle moment. And then Don's like, oh, and you're directing. And I mean, my mind was just blown because I'm just having fun. I'm kind of, but the thing was, is that then it got serious. Then Don and I spent months writing really the script and making the footage that we have, working a new story. And from there it was handled like a real film, where we're actually writing stuff and getting crews and trucks and full of gear and stuff. But again, full circle again with what we're talking about. That was an opportunity, and I feel like I work hard to get these opportunities, and
Yeah.
um, do my best, to do it. But I also do it because I love it. I'm not trying to just make money or something. It's like
Right.
I'm going to do it because I love to do it. And
Yeah.
that was just a blessing and an honor to be a part of Phantasm, and all the actors. I wanted the original cast back. We wanted, like, it wasn't like, let's reinvent this. It's like, no. And I wanted to go back to the first movie and echo the innocence of the first movie, which is a little kid being attacked by this horror, right?
Hmm.
And taking over his town, and no one's believing him. I was like, that innocence has been lost with the other movies because now they're badasses with guns and they're fighting all that. It's like, how do we capture that innocence back without bringing in new characters? So that's where we went. Kind of, Don and I came up with the idea of like Alzheimer's and dementia, and what if Reggie's dealing with that, and there's one version of him no one's believing these stories he's telling, but maybe, just maybe, some of the stories we hear from dementia patients is them seeing another dimension, and it gets a little heady there, but that's what Phantasm's always been to me. It's always more questions than answers, and I don't know. If you can't tell, like, this was a huge
Yeah.
highlight of my
That's
career, and I
amazing.
definitely worked on some cool projects and things, but I've always been a Phantasm fan. So for me, it's like just being able to be a part of that world in
Yeah.
any form is
when you're when you're a
great.
kid and it's the thing that you love as a kid, there's just no like replacing those things. And that's what's hard too about getting older, and like your
Yeah,
heroes die off, and
yeah,
there's nobody who's like going to take over for like Robin Williams, as your favorite comedian
right.
actor or whatever. The ones that you grew up with are just like, I mean, you can maybe try to take over for somebody else and be that for somebody else, but your heroes and the things that you look up to are just never going to be as hot burning as the ones
It,
from when you were a kid.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, but that's how everything is, and there's going to be new properties with new heroes for new generations of people. Um, so I try not to be closed minded. Even though I say I only watch 70s and 80s movies, it's like, but I'm,
Hmm.
I'm not trying to be closed minded
Right.
uh, to change and keeping up with what's new as well. Because again, I find technology inspiring as well, and getting the new gear. I got cameras, at least 3 or 4 cameras I'm looking at here. I just, again, I love to tell stories and come up with the way to tell them, and whether that's comics, animation, movies, even music. It's like I try to dabble in everything and not get
Yeah.
burned out of just one.
Okay, you've brought up like so many things that I got to follow up on. I
Sorry.
hope we can make it into an hour and still
Sorry.
talk about our monster of
I could
choice,
talk
right?
forever too, man.
Okay, hold
I
on.
just
All right, so let's work backwards. You just
yeah.
mentioned the the music, which I just discovered on your site while I was nosing around.
Oh, right,
This
right.
is
Zorgon.
Zorgon.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's just ever since, again, I was a little kid doing these short films, I made my own music for them, and just Casio keyboard, and I've just been doing it, but I've kept it kind of, you know, secret to myself. And here I am, it wasn't until I'm in my 40s that I decided to put it on some YouTube videos where I'm drawing, and then people are like, "Oh, what's that music? I want to hear that." And I was like, okay. So talk to some friends and other, musicians I know, and they're like, "Here, do it this way." And then I put out an album, and it did really well. It's like, here, do another album. I don't know. Again, it's just fun. I'm going to make music regardless of
Yeah.
whether anyone likes it or buys it, because to me, that's kind of a coping or healing mechanism in a way, but it
Hmm.
also reflects my art. So my hands hurting from drawing too much, I'll go do music. I'm still being creative and still being productive. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I just really like music, and I kind of see it the same way as I do drawing. And again, whether it's liked or not, I don't know, but it's definitely got the 80s synth kind of stuff and
Yeah.
EDM kind of stuff. It's kind of different than my other stuff, but I don't know. I have fun.
That's cool because yeah, I'm right there with you, and like I think the heyday of it for me was around maybe 1999. You know, like late 90s, 2000. I was making stuff with like software, like Acid and these kind of loop based
Yeah, I used
programs.
Cubase
Hmm.
Basic, I think was my first
Right.
computer thing.
I had Mixman was my first. It was just this thing that would play little loops for you, but you could do it like in real time with your keyboard. But
Right.
yeah, I've been buying up old keyboards and synths and whatever else I can get a hold of. And I just like, I don't know, there's something about like, I don't know how to work them for the most part, but there's something about the feel of them and they look cool. And
I'm
I
the
just want
same
to
way.
tweak the knobs and
When I was a kid, I had maybe four little, like just little keyboards, right? I'd get them from garage sales or whatever.
yeah.
And I remember I used to like hook them up where I learned about Y splitters, like where you can split a plug from Radio Shack, and you could buy these little split an audio cable into two cables, for like 60 cents. So I bought like a bunch of those, and I would hook up all these, you know, um, keyboards and stuff. And I ran it through my parents' stereo. And I remember once I did not understand levels. So I have
Hmm.
everything turned up. And I didn't
Yeah.
know this was possible, but I actually melted my parents' stereo. It started smoking, and there was like plastic pouring out of the back. I don't know what I did, but something melted inside.
Oh, see, if you had been running video, that could have been the video for it. You know, that'd
Oh
be
yeah, that would
amazing
have been
visuals.
awesome. I probably would have melted that too, because I'd
That's
have
right.
all the
I
splitters
melted,
hooked up on
I
it.
melted a, remember the Evil Knievel's that where he's just sitting there
Yes,
and he doesn't
yeah.
move and he would come with a motorcycle. I'd like lost the motorcycle. So I was just playing with him when I was like 7 and he was having an adventure and he was going through all these hazards. And at one point he got on the electric stove and I was like, now Evil's going to get a hot foot. And I turned it on. And then like one of my mom's roommates yelled for me to come so that she could yell at me. And I came back and it was all melted into a puddle and there was just smoke going everywhere in the kitchen. Never
Oh,
fessed up to what actually I had put on there.
yeah. I remember my brother had he had GI Joes, like the big ones, the ones that are now worth a fortune, and he had a bunch of them. And I remember I was like the jerk little brother, but I ended up setting them all up, and I would get darts and dip them in red paint, and then throw them at the GI Joes. So when it hit them with a dart, and they go flying
Whoa.
back, but it'd make this big red paint splatter. To me, that
Mhm.
was the coolest thing ever. But hindsight, I completely destroyed this fortune my
Yeah,
brother could have had.
sure.
Fortune selling these toys, and I
But if they
destroyed them.
weren't destroyed, if everybody saved them, then they wouldn't be worth a fortune, right? We all did
And
that.
that is true.
I
You need to
crucified
convert
He
kids.
Man once.
To, you're
I
right.
crucified He Man and lit him on fire with model glue. You should have like an 18 and
I'm
up
glad I'm not
warning
alone
to,
in this.
yeah. But no, you just reminded me with the GI Joes. I had the 5.5 inch or whatever
Uh huh.
from our generation, and uh, I would go in the backyard where we had like a little pond, and I would set up battle scenes and then photograph them, and then like pay to get that stuff developed back then. You know, get my little
I did
GI
the
Joe
same
battle
thing.
scenes.
I would make little comic books taking
Yeah,
photos. But I was always bad because the camera we had, you couldn't get macro, you couldn't get up close. So all my shots are like, you know,
right.
either out of focus or
Hmm.
or really wide.
All
Okay, I
right,
know we got off on a tangent
that's
there.
okay. We
Our
said we would talk about whatever
movies,
we want, and we are, but I don't want
awesome.
to keep you forever. But I do have two burning questions, and then we will talk about your monster of choice.
Okay.
Uh, okay. First of all, you mentioned the collaborations with Rob Schrab and
Oh,
Dan Harmon
yeah, Dan Harmon.
on Channel 101 and stuff, and I'm just fascinated by that because I like what they do, and I've followed Rob's career since I guess I was reading his disposable assassin
Yep.
comics back in the
Uh,
day. So, and then to see that, that he's like working on the Sarah Silverman program and just kind of part of
Yeah, he actually had me on
all
that.
that.
I actually played a model railroad um, train guy with actor Ken Daly, and the two of
Oh
us
yeah, yeah.
was like model train and kind of drove this train up Jay Johnston's butt. It was kind of weird, but um, it
That's
was funny. But
awesome.
if you ever watch that again, I am one of the train the little
Yes.
model train conductors.
No, I just put Sarah Silverman program back in rotation now that I found that it's
Awesome.
on Paramount Plus. So that's
Yeah, no, it's like that's another one of those things where there's an opportunity in that I found Channel 101 online at the very beginning. They had just started making it public or whatever on a website. And, I loved the stuff. I was like, hey, I'm already making short films like this.
mhm,
I'd love to meet some like minded people that do it. So I did one and entered it. And it made it into their program, and I went there, and Rob and I really hit it off. Rob's like one of my best friends now, and
cool.
um, we all hit it off, and I just kept on making stuff. Like still one of my favorites is Magic House, where I play a Girl Scout and fighting fish monsters or giant robots, and I
Yeah,
created
those
this robot
rule.
characters. It's really weird. It's like a mime,
That's cool.
Girl
What's
Scout
it
with fighting
called?
monsters. That one's just called Magic House.
Okay.
If you look at it, I think I actually have one episode on my YouTube, which is like Sideshow Monkey Art or something. You can check it out there. But I know there's other episodes floating around. Um, but yeah, I mean that was just really a lot of fun. It's like because I'm with all these guys, and everyone's kind of gone on to be successful in their own right, whether it was Rick and Morty or Rob doing Sarah Silverman, Creep
Yeah.
Show, and everyone's kind of gone on to work in the industry, which is it's really bizarre. But I still miss being able to do those because really the best thing about Channel 101 for me personally was like having to make a story within like 5 minutes that has like three acts and you have to get a point across where
Hmm.
everything before that, my stuff kind of led to a gag, like a horror gag or that. And I think I really grew a lot as a storyteller while being a part of that group because there's also the friendly competition of trying to outdo each other
Oh
or
yeah.
each other laugh. And,
Yeah.
that was kind of the camaraderie there is really fun. But um, yeah, I don't know if that answered your
That
question or
sounds
not.
so cool. Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to hear some inside stuff. I mean, that sounds
Yeah.
amazing. It's tough to to figure out story and to develop that way, but I guess like what you're saying is you take something on and figure it out as you go.
Yeah, that's kind of what you got to do these days. Is if you commit to something and have faith in yourself that you can. Now more than ever, I would say it's easier because like even I knew nothing about After Effects, but I've taught myself how to use it over the years, and again, it's out of necessity. You can't go into a program like Photoshop or After Effects and just immediately take a 10-minute tutorial and think you're going to know everything.
Hmm.
You need to like because those programs there's different ways to solve every problem, and it's based on your own creativity. It's just a tool.
Right.
So like I go in with this, what do I need to accomplish with this uh, you know After Effects thing now? Am I having a guy's arms ripped off and I just want some blood to shoot out and look as realistic as possible? I don't need to
Hmm.
know about tracking or any of this other stuff. Like it's just focus on how do I accomplish the task at hand. And next thing you know, it's been 10 years and you know all the programs really well. But then a new
Yeah.
program comes out and you're an idiot and you got to start all over.
Well, yeah. But I mean, it's good. It's good to remind the youngsters out there that, and ourselves, I guess, but that as long as you don't quit, that's all you can do is just don't quit.
Well, yeah,
And that means
I
you're going to
have
keep
a daughter.
working, and then you will eventually know a thing better than and have more confidence than you
Yeah,
did when
and I have a
when you
daughter,
started.
and she helps me make the films. She actually played one of the dwarf creatures in Ravager,
Oh yeah.
and she's got to be behind the scenes on a lot of stuff because she helps me make the films. She's also an artist, and we have a lot of fun doing that. But I constantly preaching that same kind of thing. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed, because I do it all the time. I'm constantly overwhelmed, and then I beat myself up, and then I'm procrastinating because I'm waiting for whatever inspiration or self-confidence or whatever. It's not going to happen. I'm just going to be like, yeah, I suck. Everything I make sucks. So the next thing I'm going to do, it's going to suck, but I'm going to go in and do my best, to make it not suck. And but you just got to keep moving forward and have that drive to tell stories, and not worry about just being criticized about it in this day and
Yeah.
age, which is a lot of it, which is,
That's
you know
tough.
it's tough to put yourself out there these days, as at least talking to my daughter as a young person, putting yourself out there, because everyone's judged for everything they do. And that's tough as an artist,
Yeah.
because you're constantly growing. You're never as good as you're going to be tomorrow. So you just keep, you got to just keep going forward, and just looking inward on yourself, and what you need to do to get to the next hurdle that you want to get to. Of course, I preach all this stuff, and then I go
Yeah.
and beat myself up and draw a goofy monster, and
Hey, we can know something intellectually and not actually do it. Okay.
exactly. I'm just waiting for Marvel movies to just almost completely die, because they are taking over
Yeah.
pop culture, uh, to the point where people are like, oh, you draw horror stuff. Well, draw Wolverine as
Yeah.
this. And I was like, I'm not in. I'm
We,
I'm I'm not into that
they're
so
going
much.
down a down. They're going down a path of destruction if people like us are like enough with the Marvel.
I know, right? Enough of the superhero stuff.
We grew up on this stuff, and we're
Yeah,
like, all
I'm kind with my
right.
Rep Brown and Lou Ferrigno,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like with the niche stuff, like for me, like something, to get my artwork seen more. That's, I don't know if you saw, I do this Monsterween, which is just Inktober. Um,
Okay.
so at Halloween time, I do my own prompt lists, and you should check it out. I think you would like
Yeah.
it. If you look back in my Instagram just through October, I've done it for like 4 or 5 years now, but they're all kind of like B movie monsters.
Yeah.
Um, and before it always did pretty well, but now it's like, okay, Bloody Disgusting or sorry, Dread Central was covering it on their website. I was getting hundreds of people doing their versions every day of characters, and it's not for uh, money, or the exposure is fine, but I try to comment on everybody's because it's just fun. It's fun. So I'm coming up with like, the Hunchback of Naughty Dames, and I draw him as a PI with these hot girls with him, but he's got his hunchback, and so it's all
Yeah.
like weird creature names like that. But doing that, also, every time I do that, I get like a swarm of new followers, because other people are doing their versions, tagging your site, and then they're sharing it with their friend base. So this was just kind of my way of growing the audience a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but and then at the end, I actually do sell a book. Like I put them all in a book and sell it on Amazon.
Oh, with
Uh,
everybody's stuff.
no, because of copyright reasons. It's just
Right.
mine,
Makes
my
sense.
stuff. But I created the prompt list, so it's uh, my prompts and stuff. But a lot of the people that participated want to buy a book, because
Hmm.
again, it's make, and I think what you're doing is great, because by doing the podcast, you're inviting people in to be a part of it and listen, other creators, and I mean, you're doing everything right. So uh,
Thanks. Well, I tried the prompt thing too a couple months ago. I I came up with this sort of, well, this is totally somebody else's idea. My friend Michael Slack is a kids book illustrator who loves monsters and
awesome.
that sort of thing. But he was like, you should do with you, when you know the amount of followers, you could get them all kind of drawing monsters if you give them a prompt. and the pressure of the daily ones is like too much for me to keep up with.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll do a weekly one, and I was making these little videos where like I made a puppet monster, and he would bring up cards to
Oh,
show the
that's great.
prompts. And I like the little game that I came up with where it's like a descriptor card and then a noun kind of a card, and you combine them randomly.
Yeah, that's fun.
But it was like making the videos and then drawing it and then posting other people's stuff. It became like just one too many things for me to do. So I kind of just let it
Oh,
slip
absolutely.
for
Well, I
now.
was doing YouTube draw with me videos, right? If you go to Sideshow Monkey Art, and a lot of them are time lapse, because I just didn't have time. But I tried to I was doing them and doing the drawing, but I would make skits around it, and the skits had like visual effects, like, and each skit like ties to the next one. So there's one where I'm drawing a bee monster, like a 50s scientist turns into a bee man, like the
Yeah.
Fly, but yet I'm doing talking and I'm animating bees flying in the air to where they sting me, my
Oh.
head swells up to like fill the whole screen.
Wait, are you
Uh,
flipping through pieces of paper or kind of building
no,
on
I'm
one
drawing on
drawing?
the iPad,
Oh, okay. That makes
but
sense.
I'm filming over the shoulder.
Hmm.
But then I do one where I'm out riding my bike and I crash, but I break my spine. So I, split screen it where the top half's facing one way, the bottom half's facing another. Then I get taken up in a UFO and there's aliens and, um, but they're just little crappy shorts, but you might like them if you check them out. But I thought they were doing pretty good in that, it got a couple thousand followers right away.
Hmm.
But I just couldn't keep up that
Yeah.
plus directing TV shows, plus I was doing comics at the time. And it's just like, now I'm burning the candle at both ends. So I had to stop, but I kind of want to start it back up. But I'm coming up with a new formula that's a little more modular where I can just more of a talk and draw kind of thing. And then,
Yeah.
but
We
still have little monsters and skits and things in it. But yeah,
we were
it's a
talking
lot of
about
work.
that before the mics started of talking and drawing, which you do, which
Right.
is awesome. I
I
did.
always drew in college, and the
Yeah.
teachers would be like, "What you're drawing while I'm lecturing?" And it's like, but I could remember each of those moments associated with each drawing. Or I look at like, okay, when I draw the
Mm.
cowman, you were talking about this, and I don't know that's how I work, I guess, or even how I take notes and stuff. It's drawings and then just little keywords next to the drawing, and then I remember everything. It's kind of weird.
Right. I think I do that with like if I'm painting and not having to, take anything in, but I'm like a movie's going and I'll look at that section of the painting later and be like, oh, that was watching a Sarah
Right,
Silverman program during that or period or
right.
whatever. But in class, I was just like, I tried to draw and then, I woke up from it like an hour later and was like, oh God, I heard nothing.
Right. Yeah, I'm guilty of that too. But
Okay. So tell me about the Minnesota Iceman, which I'm dyslexic or something because the first couple times I read it, I was like, "Who's the Minnesota ice cream man?"
well, I would like to see that actually. Yeah, no, the Minnesota Iceman's one of those you know Bigfoot type of stories you hear that fascinated me as a kid, or actually as a teenager. I didn't find out about it until like maybe high school or college, uh, reading like one of those Time Life books, about mysterious
Hmm.
creatures and stuff. And I'd check it out at the library, volume 12, cryptids and whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and there's just everything I've always found has just been a little paragraph, right? But it triggered these kind of memories I had when I was a kid. Um, so the Minnesota Iceman, for those that don't know, it's like this Bigfoot that was frozen in ice, like, or this missing link between man and monster or whatever. But supposedly it was found and frozen in ice, and tons of scientists saw it, took photos of it, did drawings of it, and measurements and whatnot. And it's supposed to be shipped off to the museum of whatever they were sending it. But supposedly it got lost in transit, or anyhow, it ended up in the hands of this farmer who decided to take it to fairs and put it on show as Bigfoot. And then later people would go to those and see it, like maybe the late, maybe early 80s, I think. But they had finally found it and saw it, and the scientists are like, no, this is not the thing we saw. This is a facsimile of what we saw, and it was like a rubber creature or whatever. So there's this kind of like conspiracy of what happened to the real one. There's theories that the farmer let the real one melt accidentally and it dissolved, so he made a facsimile to take out so he could still make money off of it. It's a really weird story, but the reason it gravitated towards me was because when I was, again, like around maybe like 8 or 9 or something, I'm from Ohio originally, and I went to the Ohio State Fair, and I remember this is back in the days, when your parents would just let the kids run loose, and it's like, here's like $1 of quarters, go to the arcade or play some carnival games or whatever.
As God intended.
Yeah, as they go wine tasting or whatever. They see the butter cow, whatever it was. But at that time, they still had sideshow kind of freak shows. And I'd go to, and it's not anything fancy. It's like a 2-headed cow that's stuffed, or then like some other 2-headed animals and tubes, in bottles, and then they'd have like some sort of gag, which is like a mirror gag, where it's like, oh, see the ape lady, and it's like, one of those mirror gags where they transform in front of you. But I love that stuff. That was kind of the taboo part of the fairground, and I loved it. So as a kid, I was supposed to go to the arcade. Instead, I decided I'm going to the freak show and spend my quarter to get into that. And on the way, right out in front of the freak show was this like RV thing, and it had a painting on it, and it said, "See Bigfoot and the world's smallest woman." And it had a Bigfoot, and he was all covered in ice, and then there was a hand with this beautiful naked Venus type woman, covering up her privates, hanging on his hand. And I was like, oh my God, I'll get to see Bigfoot and a naked lady the size of my action figures, right? Like, this is going to be awesome. So I paid my quarter to go in, and I saw this Minnesota Iceman thing. And this is in the late 70s. And, I saw this thing, and it's frozen in ice, and it looks like all the photos I've seen. And I was doing more research and found like they did go apparently through Ohio, and it was like one of the last times before the supposedly real one melted.
Yeah.
So it was like supposedly one of the last times the real one was seen. I'm like, oh, did I get to see the real thing? And now, the naked woman the size of my action figures was a disappointment. It was probably like an 80-year-old woman sitting on a pillow, and I just remember she had a cigarette. She was smoking, and she's like, "What are you looking at, kid?" And I ran out. But it was not as advertised. But that was kind of my fascination started, where I love cryptids. I love Bigfoot, Abominable Snowman, Loch Ness Monster. I absolutely love all that stuff. Yeah. But I consider myself a skeptic that wants to believe, right? Like I doubt everything I see, or unless I see it for myself, and even then I'm gonna overanalyze things, because everything can be hoax. But I do want to believe, and there's like so much cool stuff out there, and the paranormal, and I've had weird experiences, as everyone has, of some sort, with whether it's ghosts or whatever. But I don't know. That's kind of like one of my memories as a kid, right? I feel like, oh, I got to see a monster,
Yeah.
And I see the photos in these old magazines and books, like 40 and Times had a write-up on it and stuff. And it's like, I don't know, seeing that stuff again, it's one of these things that takes you back to your childhood, back to one of the things that I think shaped and influenced me. Um, I've done some fan art for the Iceman. I even,
Oh, yeah.
if anyone out there listening has ever gotten the Devil's Rejects Rob Zombie, I did a comic book with him off the Devil's Rejects, and I
Nice.
did a story where they're at a fair carnival, and the characters are getting into hijinks that involve murder, and in the background, I drew a little me looking up at the Minnesota Iceman and
That's
the
cool.
big hand, so you could see that in the background. Uh,
How
I,
self-indulgent.
yeah, absolutely. But for me, that was again coming full circle, like coming to you know terms with this thing you saw as a kid.
Well, growing up in the 70s, I think we were all super just maybe even overexposed, but definitely influenced
Yeah.
by Bigfoot. I mean, it was like Evil Knievel, uh, Bruce Lee, and the
Absolutely.
Bigfoot was pretty much all we talked
Yeah.
about.
Well, and Bigfoot was on $6 Million Man,
Yeah.
uh, and there was this movie that also we had where I was in Ohio, or if you're in Chicago, we had WGN, and it had this guy called himself Superhost, and he would do skits and stuff, which was I loved, and probably why it made me want to do skits and
Uh
things.
huh.
But he would do like his fake Raiders of the Lost Ark or fake, Bionic Man. But he would show, horror movies, but Legend of Boggy Creek was on
Yeah.
all the time. And that thing as a kid blew my mind because it's half pseudo documentary, half a linear story with these people being attacked. And it's gritty, it's crappy, like quality print, and it's
Yeah.
grainy and you can't
This
see half the things. But I freaking scared the crap out of me as a kid. I loved it,
I think
and
I think that was the first episode of this podcast when we started in 2017. We
oh,
did
really?
Legend of Boggy Creek. That was when we first started it. It was me and my wife, and she's not into this kind of stuff. Like
Mhm.
she's very supportive, but she's got her own
Right.
interests. She's got her own interests, but she's got like a really bitingly fast wit. She just kind of talks
Uh-huh.
like a comedian, and so I would play these trailers and clips of these movies for her and just see what she thinks. She'd never seen Star Wars before we got together, so she's never
Oh
seen
my
any of
god.
this stuff.
Wow. Wow.
And so I would play like the trailer for Boggy Creek and Monster Club and these kind of movies for her and see what
Right.
she thinks. And always surprising what she would say. But that's good stuff.
Yeah. So I mean that's kind of my encounter. But I love that stuff. And even on my wall over here I have I don't think I could show it, but I have a Bigfoot print that's from the original Patterson Gimlin film,
You're
Bluff
right,
Creek.
Patterson Gimlin.
Uh, and yeah, I have a cast that was supposedly taken from the mold. I'm sure it's not, but I don't care. It's hanging up, and I got like a Bigfoot Tours sign
I
hanging above
saw
it.
I
Just
saw
love
one of
that
those
stuff.
videos where they had done motion stabilization on
Yes,
that
yeah,
video.
that's great to see.
And I was like, I'm a skeptic for sure.
Yeah,
I don't know if I believe in ghosts or anything like that,
right.
but seeing that, I was like, oh dang, it doesn't look like a guy in a suit. I've seen people in ape suits, and that's not like how
Well,
people are
it's
built.
more about the time too. The understanding that goes into the suits. Like to me, it's like if it is a suit, man, why weren't they like doing that quality in movies? Like, why is all the Bigfoot movies so crappy
Right.
look? If you're going to spend that much money to make a suit and then not use it for anything but a hoax film,
Right.
I don't know. For me, it's always like, what's the motivation for all this stuff? And if it was just to get people to see your other films or whatever, I don't know.
We're still talking about
That's
it.
fine. Yeah, and again, whether it's real or not is almost not even the point for me anymore. It's just about the belief in something else could be out there. I mean, especially with the ocean and stuff, we don't know half of what's down there. So to say that there's
Yeah.
nothing that we haven't seen already, it's like, I don't necessarily believe that. There might be some creatures that are incapacitated way down deep that can't make
For
it up
sure.
top without imploding or something. So I don't know.
Well, my
Um,
my wife was just talking about this with squids and octopi, where
mhm.
all the other intelligent beings on this planet are like genetically related. But squids and octopus are super smart, but they have nothing to do with like the way that we're built, genetically. So we're like, what if like a comet a million years ago just landed in the ocean and there was some kind of alien bacterium in there and it evolved into this that's just different
Yeah,
but alien.
or the opposite. That was the native, and we're the alien.
Mm.
Like we were the cells that came and then evolved into something else.
Yeah, I just
Um,
watched what is the first sort of Hammer genre movie that led into all their uh
Quartermass experiment.
Quartermass, yeah,
Yeah,
and that was kind of the premise there, right? Was that
yeah,
aliens came and changed cavemen into what we are now by like
right.
merging with us. That was an
Yeah,
interesting
I don't know
idea.
if I believe that stuff, but I'm fascinated to read about it. I love
Ah, it's
the
just
what
fun to wonder
ifs.
about.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever seen Yeti, Giant of the
Oh,
20th Century?
absolutely! With the best theme song ever, it has its own theme songs singing Yeti, and he has the most beautiful hair, and
Yeah, he
he,
does. I
he
mean,
looks like a
I'm
proud
jealous.
constable. His hair's always blowing.
I gotta admit,
That
I
Mighty
only got
Peking Man. That's the other one
what
too.
is it?
Mighty Peking Man.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, you need to see that one. That's got like this hot girl running around in her leather uh, bikini that's kind of like Sheena or
Uh,
a Jungle Girl, but with a giant gorilla Bigfoot creature. Yeah,
well,
it's the
I
'60s.
it was the sexuality that made me kind of uncomfortable in the
Oh
Giant of the
yeah, it's
20th
really
century.
weird.
This like she's the main sort of character is a girl. She's like maybe
Right.
15, and then she like accidentally touches his giant nipple and it goes erect. I was like, I gotta move on. So I haven't seen past that.
Again, the passion, man, the
Yeah.
passion that went into making that.
Yeah, right. Well, geez, on that note, maybe I should let you go. Don't want to take your whole day up.
Yeah, no, this has been fun. We can always do it again sometime too.
That would be
I love
amazing.
talking stuff and
That would be
talking
amazing.
monsters.
I mean, um, got to tell you this. This is what I was hoping the pod would be. You know what I mean? This is
Cool.
awesome. But I do have one more burning question for you.
Yeah.
I went to the thrift store yesterday, and uh, it's one that has still a bunch of VHS on the racks, 30
Awesome.
cents. And
Wow.
I found one, and I just want to know, should I touch?
Do not touch. Oh
That's
my
all it's
gosh.
all it says on it. So maybe I'll find out today what
Wow.
was on
It's just a
here.
black tape.
Yeah.
Oh,
But for
that's
those
awesome.
listening at home, it's just Sony tape.
Oh no, you have to, even if it's gonna be like, 7 days you're dead or something.
Yeah.
You
I was
still
wondering
gotta.
if it's either evidence, or
Yeah,
maybe it's
you
just
might be calling
reruns of
the
Everybody
FBI.
Loves Raymond. I don't know, but
Yeah, but that is weird. You might be calling the FBI soon.
yeah.
Dude,
So
that's awesome.
where do people find you on the internets
Uh,
and stuff?
Mainly Instagram's where I'm the most active, which is David Hartman Art. But you can also go to my website, sideshowmonkey.com, which has also the store. It has a gallery. I have links to like Phantasm Ravager, the movie trailer, and other stuff. Also, my Zorgon music. You
Mm-hmm.
can also find on anywhere, Spotify, any music platform.
Oh,
It's on
sweet.
it. Yeah, and then I got books and things on Amazon, and I've worked on tons and tons of animation. So
You're
um,
prolific.
I guess I don't know. I just dabble, jack of all trades, master of none. I
Right.
just like to dabble in everything. But
I just want to try everything once before I die, which is hard because
I
then you
know,
don't really get good at anything, like you said. But
I like to know. I like to make stuff, and I don't like putting all my eggs in one basket. So just a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks again, dude.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This has been the Cheap Chills Show. For more spooky fun, follow us on Instagram at Cheap Chills Fan Club. Thank you for listening.